need to see. I'm going to take a wild stab in the dark and say Rengar.
Let me get your predictions right here. What are we getting on the red side bans?
Rengar's probably going to be banned. Camille probably going to be priority. Maybe a LeBlanc thrown in there too.
Maybe a LeBlanc.
But now if you're Vitality, you wouldn't be surprised if we saw a Malzahar. Got that just before I could. As creative as the blue side can be, it's still very standard to ban away both the Zyra and the Malzahar. It does allow you to have a little bit more freedom in what you want to prioritize in supports, and it means you can also save it for later on. So I'm looking at an early pick Kha'Zix, honestly, based on how the rotation is going. Origen very likely to ban away the LeBlanc here, and then Vitality can just pick up that power farming, or that power hyper-aggressive jungler in Kha'Zix.
This is something we thought about a little bit in the pregame, is the Jace that Satorius had, relative success on, worth banning away. It turns out that is the case, and there's the LeBlanc ban. So now we go into pick number 1. Looks like we could be in for that Kha'Zix for Djoko, and right on the money, he's going to hover that. Still got 20 seconds to lock it in. There it goes.
So with the Kha'Zix gone, Origen can now look to pick up their bottom lane if they want. You could go for something like a Varus here. Fairly strong, especially, I've heard a lot of people say, like, on red side in particular, it's pretty potent. Something that Tabzz has brought out a lot in the past as well. Fairly safe pick, and it's also pressuring Vitality to pick up their AD carry now as well.
So the Varus is locked in. Will we see it paired with the support right away? Looks like that's the case. It's the Tahm Kench locked in, so that's very protective for a Varus, not very mobile champion.
The interesting thing about the Tahm Kench is they're predicting Vitality will go towards the Ashe, and by picking an Ashe into a Tahm Kench, you're already making things a little bit difficult, which does suggest that maybe Vitality will not have to move towards that Jhin, which offers a little bit more utility in other ways.
And there it is, locked in right on time. I really like this choice of Tahm Kench, though, for Hiiva. He's so far played only these very squishy supports, and he's had a very aggressive positioning that's punished him in the past, but this is looking much better for him. Now, what is Vitality going to pair with this Jhin?
You could round out it with the support. We have seen Taric being picked up into the Tahm Kench, offers a little bit more strength in terms of team fights. Or you could look to prioritize your top lane, which is something that we saw a lot from Misfits yesterday.
Yeah, so the Shen is not one Cabochard has played just yet, but he has been sitting pretty tanky with a couple of Nautilus games and a Poppy game in his pocket, so this should give them some more protection. I love combining it up with that Kha'Zix Vitality. They seem to be coming in with a better game plan this time around, and now Origen are toying with the Rek'Sai in the last phase of pick 1.
So far, I'm very pleased with the way in which Vitality have drafted. Very meta, very standard, very stable and strong. They have good early pressure with the Kha'Zix. They have global pressure with the Shen, who can move into strong split push presence later on into the game. And now we're moving into the second half of the draft.
Yeah, so now they start looking to hit other roles on the map. Origen are going to ban out the Talia that Nukeduck had a pair of games on. And this is really nice to see from Vitality trying to match this pace. Something we criticized them so heavily for in the previous matches they had was a lack of power pick priority.
I feel like that if you are Origen, given that you're banning away the Talia, you can now ban away the Syndra or the Ryze, and then look to priority pick the other one. Because you do have first pick on the red side, and
there you go.
That means that you do end up getting that power pick earlier on, and Vitality will have not as many answers to it with the number of mid lane bans.
Yeah, so we see the Ryze rounding out Origen's ban. There's still that rumble on Vitality's side that they've taken away to not allow Satorius to play, so we'll have to figure out what he's going to be picking himself up on. The Maokai
they might
is
ban
still
away
available.
the Kennen.
They might do it.
Kennen may very well be a ban if they really want to make sure that Cabochard doesn't get pressed during the laning phase, if they just want to make sure that Satorius isn't something aggressive. We saw him be really powerful in terms of split pushes in his previous games earlier this week. But it looks like that he may still have a few options given the current bans.
Yeah, with the Poppy banned away, we'll see if Origen want to take this on their next rotation. It makes a lot of sense. They'd still be looking for a mid laner, but we have seen a lot of teams save that for last.
I feel like Syndra has to be the pick here for Origen. Otherwise, Vitality are just going to pick that one up for themselves. If you're Vitality, you could pick the Cassio into it. I know that Nukeduck is fairly potent on the champion. Interesting that they would prioritize the Maokai. They're either saying that we have an answer to the Syndra, or they're I feel like that's the best option that they've got, and they want to try and make sure that NaeHyun can get the counter pick in mid.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. Okay, I mean, it does make a little bit of sense. NaeHyun has had a lot of struggles in their earlier games, and maybe they want to give him an edge over Nukeduck. Let's see what he locks in here as his last. They've already taken the Bard for Hachani.
So I'm pretty confident that if we see a Syndra from Vitality, then it's going to be an Echo response from Origen. The great thing about Echo as well is you can put him up into a side lane going up against the Shen, but Vitality, they're not taking the bait.
No, they're going to go for the safe pick. So they lock in the Corki now, say, bring it on. Whatever you got, we can handle it. So now all we have to wait and see is if Origen wants to take that Syndra for their last choice.
Oh, don't tempt me, Origen. Don't tempt me. But
boy.
Let's focus on the composition from Vitality. They have good scaling. They have a very powerful mid-game spike. They have early pressure with the Kha'Zix. They have a decent 1-3-1 because you can set up a Corki in the side lane later on into the game, but it's that mid-game spike that really is where you'll see a lot of their power come from.
And there we go, talking about power spikes, this Orianna now, when they'll have a lot of delivery systems. They have a Rek'Sai, they have a Maokai. That's a pretty big front line that's begging for a shockwave. We could be in for some real big, powerful fights. Vitality have a pretty solid front line with this form of Shen themselves, and oh man, I like this.
Now, Origen have a very team fight heavy composition. I think that it's pretty good against, in particular, a lot of single target damage that you have in the form of Kha'Zix and Shen, who are looking to just isolate that target and pick them off. Tahm Kench can provide a lot of peel, especially when you have two low mobility carries in the form of Orianna and Varus. The big risk for Origen is that they've only got two major damage dealers. And so if you throw down an exhaust onto one target, that's 50% of your damage gone, right? So Origen needs to be a little bit careful. Their laning phase is very important. So what I'd like to see from Wisdom is a lot of focus on vision around the bottom half of the map, making sure that this Orianna and this Varus get through a fairly safe laning phase.
Absolutely, have to keep an eye on Wisdom this game. See where he ends up putting his pressure as the coaches walk hands, or shake hands, walking off stage. Walking hands doesn't sound like very fun. But somebody's got to pick up a win here. Vitality and Origen hungry for this one, and these are the points that are going to be the easiest to pick up. So if you think Vitality can walk away with this one, hashtag VIT win for game number 1 over at LL Esports. Of course, on the other side, Origen, hashtag OG win if you think they'll be able to take it. Team fight's important. We'll see how the laning phase shakes out, but nobody's pulling any punches right now.
And I'm just really happy that Vitality have actually drafted a reasonable composition. You know, the Bard is a little bit debatable, but I think it still should be fine into the Tahm Kench. You have a lot of pick potential. It's actually very good into champions like Orianna and Varus, who have no innate dashes or escapes to dodge out. So I think Vitality have drafted pretty well.
Yeah, something we haven't been able to say about them for a while now, but we'll see if they're able to execute on their composition. We're loaded up into game 1. Let's hit the Rift.
Now, something else that we really need to mention from Vitality is that their siege is very good with the amount of poke and pick that they have. But their early game is something that, while it has a lot of ability to snowball out of control, there's not a huge amount of CC, in particular in the mid lane. There are a fair number of options in the bottom, which means that if Djoko is going to look to prioritize anywhere, I would expect him to invest his resources down into the bottom lane. For the side of Origen, we've already talked about it. Those laners are super important. They hit a big mid-game spike. I think against this comp, if you're Tabzz, you could go for the tier Edge of Night Ghostblade build, which is flat, pretty heavy on the penetration. I think you can get away with it, which means that you do have a pretty stronger mid-game spike to pair up with the Orianna. You have a lot of poke, you have a lot of wave clear, and your team fighting is pretty strong. But it's very dependent on getting through a very balanced laning phase. And when you look at the bottom lane for OG versus Vitality, this could really be a struggling point for them.
Absolutely, and OG's bottom lane in general have struggled in matchups that, in all honesty, they should be the ones pushing in. We've been criticizing Tabzz for this, not really putting the pressure on, and now he's in something that's a little bit, you know, less straightforward. We'll see how it handles. Taking a look at our Keystone Masters, nothing too out of the ordinary to start things off. And bottom side jungle start for Djoko on the red buff, getting a nice little leash there from Hachani and Steelback. Up on the top side, the red buff's also being taken, and Wisdom is helped out by Satorius.
So, for those interested, actually, Vitality are fully aware that they should be able to push this lane in. They realize that they have a range advantage in Bard. He can be very aggressive towards the Tahm Kench, who's going to struggle to trade back. And you have a Jhin who's pretty potent at trading in general. So they can afford to go for the push at the sacrifice, or they can afford to give a pull to their jungler at the sacrifice of a bit of an early push, because they know that they will be the stronger in the 2 versus 2.
Yep. Hiiva always taking a strong forward stance right now. This is a champion that definitely has a little bit more survivability than some of the ones he's already played so far.
And I want to add to that, because this was something you mentioned in Champion Select, where Hiiva is a player that has typically been known to play these all-in, melee kind of engaged style champions. Now, that's not to say that Tahm Kench is that, but the fact that he's on a melee champion, something that can be a little bit more of a front line, can afford to soak up a little bit more damage, I think will suit his playstyle more.
Nice to see Origen really adapting and learning from the last couple of series. We'll see how it pans out. He is stunned up, caught by the Meeps. Tabzz continuing to trade, but it's a very even bottom lane right now. Pings are flying, though, and you can see Wisdom hanging around here as he finishes his jungle clear off. He's going to head for some Scuttle Vision. There's an Infernal Drake on the map, so we could see a lot of action down here early on.
I mean, we've already talked about how if Djoko should really be investing his pressure anyway, I feel like it should be the bottom side of the map. But he started on his red, he moved up to the top side, and now he's actually trying to gain vision control over the top side river, which to me is a little bit confusing. I feel like that if you're going to do anything, you should really focus on setting up your bot lane for success. And have a look, Wisdom's actually read him pretty well because all this deep vision down on the bottom side, he's got the Scuttle Grab, he's got the ward, but Djoko, he's trying to answer up top.
Yeah, and there's a taunt on to Satorius. We'll see if they're able to net themselves first blood. Djoko with the double buffs is going to hop in, but Satorius instantly flashing. Djoko follows through, tasting some fear in its first blood over to Cabo.
So good punish from Djoko. He read that Satorius was just hard pushing Cabochard up in the top lane, ends up punishing him for it, is able to get a bit of an advantage up there. But look at the bottom lane. The problem that you've gotten now for Vitality is that from the investment, from knowing that Djoko was topside and knowing that they had so much vision through the river, both Tabzz and Hiiva could afford to be a lot more aggressive. They've actually pushed Steelback and Hachani underneath their tower, and they've started to accrue pretty significant CS advantage. They've gotten themselves the first base, and I feel like this is going to be a very positive thing for the OG bot side.
Yeah, something that will help them out, not just in the confidence level, but making sure they can get ahead and move into those mid games. You talked about having a tenuous laning phase that Origen is going to have to be very careful of. Well, so far, things are looking good for them despite losing the first blood.
Yeah. Also, what we have to remember is that Origen as a team have been known for getting good early games so far. This is a team that have typically actually been getting those early advantages. Not to say massive ones, but they are a team that actually plays off pretty well with that early game lead.
This is very true. This is Hachani and Hiiva trade a couple of slaps back and forth, and he was having a little bit of fun with this one right in front of the magical journey. Meanwhile, Tabzz is solo farming down on the bot side as the opposing carry, Steelback, had already backed away to pick himself up some more long swords. NaeHyun is sniffing for something here. It's going to be hard to really do much mid because Nukeduck is on such a safe champion as Corki. It's kind of been the go-to blind pick here in Europe. And
it was smart during the draft because they realized that Syndra could have been a priority. So they said, you know what, if we just pick the Corki here, even if they pick Syndra, we should have a fairly safe matchup. So I think it was a smart call from Nukeduck to move away from one of these slightly more carry-orientated, like the Cat Arena, perhaps.
I was going to say, his champion pool in the start of the European LCS has been kind of all over the place. I mean, a couple of Talia games, the Cat Arena, he kind of got baited into, and yeah, it just has been a little strange. So maybe this time, take it a little easy. Let other roles kind of do the work here, and you managed to secure yourself Kha'Zix, so you can't have too much trouble. Speaking of, he's up on the top side again, sniffing for another gank. Satorius has got no taunt, or got no flash, I should say, as Cabochard taunts him. Arcane Smash going to get back to tower in time. It's being tanked up, and he does it again. Cabo with a second, helped by Djoko.
This is a really good time to gank the top side of the map too. That is a big minion wave that Satorius is going to lose. It's going to get soaked up by the tower, and Cabochard now at level 6. This is the point at which Vitality could actually look to make a bot side play. Djoko, by getting this advantage in the top side, has not only allowed him to snowball his lead, but Cabochard is having a great way to start. I mean, I think that it's not necessarily the best thing to invest all your resources into attack Shen, but if they make it work by using that global pressure that the Shen has, it could very well be a good early start for Vitality.
Yeah, I mean, they have the global advantage because of the Stand United, so they can, as you said, make a few more plays. And, you know, Satorius has been pushing his luck a little bit here. Wisdom looking for something on the bottom side right now. Steelback and Hachani are wise to it, courtesy of the control ward. Djoko has level 6, and he's hanging around this pit, places the ward in. So they will not be able to secure Infernal just yet, but Origen definitely focusing more heavily on the bottom side of the map right now.
They're very scared of the Kha'Zix gank, because if it's just an ultimate from Cabo, then Wisdom can quickly get there to try and provide some support. But if there's a 4 versus 3, then it's very unlikely that they're going to be able to win, especially with Satorius losing out on his teleport. So
Vitality have definitely had a much more proactive game this time around, and they really got shoved around and bullied by the likes of Splyce, and it was just so surprising to see. This is a team that, you know, has many names you might recognize on it, but they just haven't really been able to get the teamwork together to make the big plays. Now, Wisdom is going to be spotted taking the red buff on his own side of the map, courtesy of that control ward. Djoko left a little earlier.
The interesting thing about Vitality is that while their communication and teamwork has been criticized, that's not to say that they haven't been able to get advantages on certain sides of the map. It's just that when they move to play around these objectives, when you move into these mid stages around whether or not they can work together as a team and know how to set up these objectives, that's where we start to see them punished. This is also a thing that Origen has been criticized for. So you've now got 2 teams that suffer from very similar issues going up against each other, and you have to wonder whether or not have either teams fixed these issues, or is it just going to be a battle of who makes fewer mistakes?
Yeah, it might come down down to the brute strength, but I mean, it's a good point. You talk about getting in early advantages. For Origen, it has not really been on this bottom side, but it has been for Vitality. And a lot of that is in Steelback. This is a guy who's had pretty much a career of being on teams where he was the stand-up carry, with the exception of when he first debuted on Fnatic. Still yet to see if he can do enough to really put out a majority of the carry potential for his team, but may not have to this game. They've got Djoko, who's jumping in onto NaeHyun. Instant flash away. Nukeduck follows through with the Gatling gun. Phosbomb keeps on pecking away. The ghost, the bombs, it's not enough.
Very close to picking up a kill on NaeHyun. Oh, that shield just being enough to save him, because that was actually the big rocket coming out from Nukeduck. That would have been enough to secure the kill. But really good job from Nukeduck and Djoko, realizing that they had push priority on bot. Djoko moving in aggressively to try and get some deep vision. He'd already stolen away the blue, and NaeHyun gets punished through his rotation.
So it opens up Dragon potential, but he's taking it by himself. It's very risky right now, down to half his health. But Hiiva has to back off. He knows Hachani's there, so they secure Infernal Drake. Vitality at 9 minutes in are looking pretty good. Satorius gets taunted up here, throws a sapling. Cabo's trading well with him, though.
I mean, this really couldn't be better for Vitality right now, because they have pushing lanes in the bottom. Ooh, as Hachani taking a bit of damage.
And he's going to be able to portal out. Ooh, the tongue on the end. Feels bad, man. He gets away, though.
Just a cheeky touch on his behind.
Well, we've had a few of those.
Yeah, certainly have. Meanwhile, Wisdom now trying to set up a bit of deep vision, trying to get a bit of control over the top side of the jungle. But look at the collapse from Vitality.
They're going to try to make it happen. Djoko's going to take the blast cone. Sends out a spike. Wisdom is wise to it.
A zoning spike.
That's what they call it. Speaking of zoning, they managed to land onto NaeHyun. And in comes Cabochard. Stand united onto Nukeduck. Hachani's going to have to flash the ultimate from Orianna. And now Hiiva's just blown up, and Djoko gets himself a well-earned kill.
So this was just a big misplay from Hiiva. First, not respecting the taunt coming out from Cabo, but also he just didn't need to be there. NaeHyun was actually able to get out of that simply due to Wisdom's presence being in the middle lane. Really smart play from Wisdom to just try and zone away Nukeduck. He was too scared to get close, and now NaeHyun, he's being punished.
Speaking of getting close, they found NaeHyun even through the heel of Tabzz. Djoko claiming another 2-0-2 on this Kha'Zix. This is the way you want to start for Vitality.
We criticized Vitality's ability to communicate and coordinate, and so far we are seeing a big difference in them in this early game. They are utilizing these early advantages. They're having Cabochard roam down to the mid lane, take advantage of the global ultimate that he has, and they're picking up advantages left, right, and center.
It's more than that. They're making these proactive plays, something we didn't see earlier in the week. Look at this great catch on NaeHyun.
You can see that Nukeduck, he's too afraid to get that close. Hachani doesn't land the snow, but it's Hiiva right here that makes the mistake. He should have just respected the flash. He's only level 5. He didn't have enough time to pop the gray health, and he ends up getting punished for it. And then NaeHyun, he thinks that he's fine. Cabo literally just walks around and goes for exactly the same play. Djoko hadn't even used his ultimate earlier on, so they're able to get the collapse. And even with a heal from Tabzz, it just isn't enough. So honestly, just Vitality playing incredibly well so far.
Yeah, and I want to give some props to the man we just saw getting the flash taunt off up in the top lane. Cabochard has been honestly solid. He's had some help from Djoko, who has been focusing on him, but he has been everywhere they've needed him to be so far with his stand united to make these early plays. And 4-0 at 11.5 minutes into this game, it's netted them 1,500 gold lead and that Infernal Drake. By the way, there's another on the map, so Vitality are pretty happy right now.
They certainly are. I mean, we talked about investing more resources into the bot side, but I actually think it's quite interesting that Vitality decided to shift their focus rather than prioritizing snowballing a lane that should already be winning in terms of the 2v2. They actually want to try and get Cabo ahead so he can utilize his global pressure more. If he gets the shove off, you can then just roam mid and make these sort of plays. So the early investment, perhaps a bit of a gamble, because you are going up against a Maokai who can be difficult to gank, but it ends up paying off for Vitality.
Twice, in fact. And yeah, I think the bottom side, leaving Steelback and Hachani to their own devices isn't too bad when you consider how well they're able to keep up in the lane. And even with Wisdom here, Tabzz and Hiiva aren't really going to be able to bait them out just yet. We'll take a look into the mid of the map because Djoko is there. He's going to hop onto Satorius as the ward was baited. That is to a Maokai. That's the damage he's bringing out. Still only on half an item. Satorius going to be limping away, and now Steelback has found the gang squad from Origen. The game is up.
I mean, Djoko has already finished his warriors enchant on his jungle item, picked up a longsword to make matters worse. Like, he is very strong at this point in the game. Already level 8 to Satorius, who's only level 9, has like no armor on top of him, and so even as this tanky Maokai, you're not at that point yet. You're still very early on, and this is really where Djoko's Kha'Zix can look to shine.
Yeah, and on the opposite number, Wisdom, we talked about where he was going to be prioritizing. Well, he has had a bit of vision on the bottom side, and he's been.
To be fair, he's had a lot of vision.
Yeah, I mean that's what we said he needed to do, but he has just not been able to have the same level of impact. A lot of that is being on Rek'Sai. Still, this is a shaky early game for Origen. Like we said, they need to hang on for when they can team fight.
This is interesting right now because we have to think of what Vitality can do with the lead that they've got, right? Because typically Origen have had the lead in their previous games. You can see, look at the bottom of your screen. This is an interesting graph that actually looks at the average gold difference over time for Origen. And you can see the different timestamps, so 10, 20 minutes. And typically they do have a decent early game. Usually they have that lead. And it's around that mid-game point where things start to really go sour. But in this game, Origen haven't even been able to start off on a good foot.
Yeah, but for Vitality, it has looked good. On their side, getting close to that 2,000 gold advantage. 14 minutes into this game, there's going to be another Infernal and another minute on the map. Origen are going to have to find something fast. They are clustered around here, and we will see them clearing out the vision that Vitality had established. Could see our first big skirmish, the Dragon fight. Nukeduck is going to send a rocket flying towards NaeHyun, take off a chip of his health damage. It looks like Vitality are eyeballing this bottom tier 1, though. For all the action, we haven't yet seen a tower taken.
This is actually a really good setup for Vitality because what they've done is they drew NaeHyun through the long path around his jungle to the bot side where Origen expected some kind of pressure to come out from Djoko in terms of maybe setting up a dive, but that just enabled Nukeduck to get a push on mid. He had the package too to quickly be able to rotate down should he need to. And Vitality right now are just playing the pressure game so well to set up for this next Infernal Drake.
Yep, keep the waves pushed. Don't give Origen any breathing room, and that's exactly how they're going to play it for now. Nukeduck sends the boss bomb. Not a lot of mana for NaeHyun. Djoko's coming in. You see Wisdom, though. He's going to be getting the Void Rush. Hops right on top, and Djoko, they turn it around. That's tower, though, that was taken down. Nukeduck polished it off. So we're 15 minutes now. They've got first tower blood. They've got an Infernal, and boy, look at what they've got next on the plate. Another one. Hitting the ref right about now, and that's going to go down quick.
That could not have been a better first out to take for Vitality. This is going to open up the map so much more. And the fact that they've gotten themselves a second Infernal Drake 15 minutes into the game just demonstrates that Vitality have definitely improved their early game a lot.
I mean, there is so much difference between this and every other game Vitality have played so far. They have gotten, in the previous 4 games, 5 towers in total. That's less by half than the next lowest team in the league, which, by the way, is Origen. And they've not even secured dragons up until this game. So they are already far and away better than we saw from them in the previous week and earlier in this week.
You do have to criticize Origen just a little bit for it, because when you are playing up against the Kha'Zix, his ability to exert early pressure is something that you have to respect. And if you're going to push that much as a Maokai, you have to be a little bit aware of, oh, maybe he could gank my lane. But nevertheless, you still have to praise Djoko, starting on the red side in the bottom lane, actually looking to set up a gank on the top, realizing that Maokai could very well go for the early push onto the Shen, and they end up punishing it. So Vitality doing a very good job so far.
Playing where they needed to be, trying to snowball their lead, and they've done it well. Hiiva is going to get stopped up. The Flourish is there. He's still pretty tanky. But Steelback has taken over mid-push duties, even though the dual lane of Tabzz and Hiiva are against him. And meanwhile, the mid laners have gone down towards the bottom side. NaeHyun, look at the burst damage that Nukeduck is putting out just on the Trinity Force and the BF sword alone.
So it looks like that Nukeduck is actually going for a build that Dopa popularized, which is actually the Trinity Force into the Infinity Edge, followed up by the Rapid Fire Cannon. And that is the optimal damage itemization you can go for a Corki. You have a slightly smaller spike compared to the Gunblade one, but in terms of overall damage output, it's definitely the strongest that you can get. And now Djoko has to use his ultimate. Is going to be able to get out of that one, but
doesn't leap though. There we go.
You're just seeing the advantage of getting a 16-minute Trinity Force is pretty good.
Yep. And now Djoko and Hachani looking to collapse here. NaeHyun knows he has almost no health left and available. There is a shockwave, but he may not get to use it. This is Vitality starting to close the net a little bit more as they look to shove in and take out another tower. Origen, where did they look from here?
I mean, you just have to stall the game out for as long as you can now, because ideally you want to reach a very similar mid-game point. You kind of need Orianna to get to 2 items. Looks like that Tabzz working towards... It does look like that he's going to go towards that Edge of Night. So he's going to go to the build that we were talking about earlier on, which is more of that flat pen. But still, like, I feel that when you're already at this sort of deficit, you should change your itemization slightly and work towards something like the more of a teamfight build, so the Blade of the Ruin King, so you'd have more impact. But the fact that they're at this sort of deficit this early on, I think is going to make it very difficult for them because Vitality can very easily play the map now. They never actually have to fight 5 versus 5. Shen has already proved that he can very easily push out the Maokai because of how far ahead he is. There's no way that you can send Orianna into a side lane against a Corki, especially with a roaming Hachani. Look that he's got the boots of mobility. If they ever spot NaeHyun out, they just throw down that bot ultimate and he gets caught and there's nothing he can do.
Speaking of getting caught, okay, Wisdom is going to have to flash on. Hachani throws down the gold, but unfortunately he's already out, so he still pulls Hachani's every now and again.
And this is the one area that Vitality really need to work on a little bit more because Hachani has been getting caught out quite a few times. He's been doing these very often face checks. He doesn't have the support. None of his lanes, or in particular the mid lane, wasn't pushing to enable him to go that aggressive when warding, and now they've been punished for it. And we were talking about Origen finding avenues back in. If they can catch players out like this, then you're just going to enable Origen to get more global gold.
That's very true, so they'll be able to knock down their first tower, but they did trade it as Nukeduck was up in the top, pecking away at the last outer, so Origen have lost all of theirs, but they did manage to secure an answer. 19 minutes on the clock. The gold lead is still Vitality's as they traded even on that one. Well, plus a bit of change if you count Hachani. And Cabochard was working on the bottom side. So, still a lot of pressure from the Vitality team, pushing all over the map right now. And you can see it reflected in the vision, but Origen were still able to snag something back. Oh, Djoko.
Just insult to injury.
Yeah, he's
really
showing some dominance. All right, let's watch this Hachani catch again.
Oh, so that's actually really cool from Wisdom, spotting out Hachani using the Tremor Sense. I think he also got spotted out slightly on that ward that was slightly further up the river. But this is something that you can't afford to do if you are Hachani. You didn't have pushing waves. You weren't really in a position to contest that deep vision. Really, you just want to try and get river vision. That should be your priority. But instead, it's going to give away that kill and the mid-tier 1 turret.
Yeah, and in the final seconds of the Rift Herald's residency, Vitality picked that one up and give it over to Djoko. Gives him actually some extra pushing power, especially when he's by himself, and that's not something you want to see if you're Origen on Kha'Zix.
And I'm just sort of looking at how Vitality set up this play now, because you want to keep Corki up in the top side, or they're actually just going to go for a play mid.
Curtain call. Hiiva, though, has already swallowed up Tabzz, and he tanks all of the shots. Brushes it off. He's got the gray health available to him. Nukeduck up in the top. NaeHyun just can't stop this push, by the way. He does clear the wave.
But this is the 1-3-1 that we were talking about in Champion Select, because honestly, there's very little that Origen can do. They've built themselves a teamfight composition. You want to be grouping as 5, and Vitality never have to do that. They have a fair amount of poke, they have really good sieging, and Corki at this point in the game is so strong that Maokai and Ori cannot deal with him. You have to invest 2 people to that top side of the map. And if you do that, then the 3-man unit in mid is just going to run down your mid lane and start pressuring that tier 2. So Vitality just need to play the 1-3-1 right now. They just need to divide Origen up and slowly chip at these next few towers.
I want to see Origen trying to give Vitality a taste of their own medicine here. Hiiva, we have not seen him use a big Abyssal Voyage this game right now to deliver anyone, you know, to try and counter-catch. Look at Djoko, he's going to be bringing Cabochard. NaeHyun does get an ultimate off, but is not even needing Cabochard. They're going to be able to take this tower, and no response from Origen.
Very clean play. Honestly, just, this is exactly the sort of thing you want to be doing. Catching the Orianna on a side lane,
Still not at 2 items.
Has no way to get out. Like, but even with 2 items, it wouldn't change anything because it's Orianna. Like, you have so much pick potential with the Kha'Zix and the Bard. When you add to that a Shen shield, it's so easy to set up a dive.
I mean, they did. Honestly, I don't think they even needed to use the Shen shield at that point.
They probably didn't. No, I mean, you just saw the damage from Djoko, and Nukeduck alone was more than enough.
But that's rough to watch for Origen. And they're
like,
down 5k gold, they're down 2 dragons. I mean, they've got to hold on, but they just keep losing.
Thing is, personally, I don't even think Vitality, Baron is a possibility. When you look at the amount of vision control they have over the topside jungle, it's something that they can look to play around, but I feel like that they just keep doing the 1-3-1. You send Shen to the top side, you have TP, you keep Corki bot. I need to quickly look if he has the package or not, but we actually see a bit of a play in mid.
All right, Djoko, while he was away trying to take the dragon by himself, we're back into a fight. Tempered Fate lands on Steelback. Wisdom, Satorius. Steelback is going to have to flash out at the last second, but he stays alive. Wisdom following. He just needs a shot. Steelback's dancing and dodging from everything, and Origen just can't get him. Now Wisdom finally picks him up off screen as Hachani was providing some distractions, and Djoko walks it away. So that ends up being a 1-for-none courtesy of Origen, but look, Nukeduck and Cabochard have joined the fray here. Origen are going to try their luck pushing this tower.
Vitality dropped the ball ever so slightly, and NaeHyun just picks it up and forces a play mid.
I see what
really
you did
good
there.
use of the ultimate with Hiiva trying to set up a flank, forcing the fight, realizing that Djoko's on Dragon, but OG is struggling to get this turret.
They need a few more shots. Tabzz is going to do it, but now the shockwave lands. Hachani, Nukeduck, Cabo are all caught in it. Hachani's a little low. Wisdom is going to be able to tunnel away from Cabochard. Origen, they've got their prize. They've got to back away safely right now. They might have just bought themselves some more time this game. Vitality still ahead in the game, but they make a big mistake, and it costs Steelback his life and a tower.
So you'll see that Steelback was just sitting in the mid lane. This is a bit of a risk. Bear in mind, Cabo didn't have his ultimate available, and just a really good flank play from Hiiva. This is the cost of losing your mid lane turret earlier on, all because of Hachani getting caught out of position. They're able to force this play in the mid lane. They're able to pick up a kill onto Steelback with honestly, a nice snipe from Wisdom.
That was max range, man. Okay, so Wisdom finishes the job.
And they get a tier 2 turret in the mid lane. So
nicely done.
Overall, Origen doing what they can to claw back some of these leads, but it's just so difficult for them to do much when you look at the 1-3-1. And yes, you can keep forcing these plays in the mid. Yes, you can keep catching Steelback out of position, but it will enable Cabo and Nukeduck to start knocking on the doors of these inhibitor turrets.
It's true, unless you force them to panic to try and come to the defense. So Origen, we finally got to see Hiiva making a big delivery play. Will it happen again? They do have a front line. If they can keep on holding, maybe there's a chance here. We're only 24 minutes into this game after all. Let's take a look at a couple of the items we've got. Cabochard, pretty tanky in and of himself, and he's got some more push power too with the Tiamat. And of course, the Kha'Zix ever so present, the Black Cleaver.
Also, Infinity Edge now finished for Nukeduck as Wisdom.
He gets caught up. Okay, the shield's on, but the curtain call's going. Satorius, he moves in onto Cabochard, but now, with the Tempered Fate, they've actually stopped up some of the damage from it. Wisdom's gonna flash away. Hiiva, he's caught, but he flashes. Djoko, he's gonna follow. Under the tower, shots keep on firing, but it doesn't matter, so they only lose Hiiva on the side of Origen, but will they lose more here? Wisdom stopping his back. Cabochard stunned up here. The shield is on for Shen, and he's gonna get a two-man taunt. It doesn't even matter. Cabochard's following through, and now Hachani is even getting a couple for himself. That was a hell of a meat slap. And they're going to get tower off it for sure.
Vitality initially set up the play a little bit awkwardly, but make it work out for themselves. Getting the 4 for 0, getting the tier 2 turret, and now they're making their way towards their first inhibitor of the game.
Making their way down bot. They're going through the base like so quickly right now. It is just a massive gold edge that they've got. 9-2 in kills. 25 minutes in, they've broken it open. And Vitality are going to make out like bandits.
I have to criticize Steelback just a little bit. I feel like he could have timed his ultimate just a tad better. But still, the initial setup, they go for the collapse onto Origen. They realize that they have the flank from Cabo. They know they're strong at this point. Just look at the ultimate. I feel like you should know a Bard ultimate's timing to be able to land your 4th shot, to be able to get the crit onto Wisdom. Does miss it, but this is really where we see some decisive play coming out from Vitality, because Hachani's already making his way for the flank. They're trying to stop the backs and just get a bit of poke down, and it's that big rocket into the 2-man taunt as well from Vitality that really decide the team fight in favor of Vitality.
Yeah, they absolutely coordinated it well in the second round of that fight. Origen still looking to hang on here, but they have lost everything on their base, and with the bottom tier tower and inhibitor already taken out, well, Baron's looking oh so tasty for Vitality to try and finish this game off, but Wisdom is not going to let him off the hook that easy. Teleport coming, he's going to follow. The magical journey gets stopped up. Now they turn their attention to Djoko, who's forced to ultimate. A lot of Origen members hanging around here. Cabochard's not there, but he's got teleport and Stand United available if he wants it.
Yeah, bear in mind that the bottom inhibitor is down. Teleport was used for Satorius. Wisdom does have his ultimate available, so likely that they send him. But Nukeduck just continuing the push on the top side, but here comes the collapse.
Looking for it right now if they can get it. Nukeduck is dancing around. He doesn't have the package, so Valkyrie tries to get the stop.
Oh my word!
Nukeduck is going so huge, and he takes down NaeHyun. That's got to be worth right there, even if it's a shutdown courtesy of Tabzz. Now Satorius is opened up. Djoko pushing him around, tasting the fear, and they collapse with Hachani. Djoko getting the last kill, and the last shot is on to Wisdom from the curtain call. Origen in full retreat back to their base.
The fact that Nukeduck is able to trade a 1-for-1 mid laner for mid laner in a 1 versus 4 is massive for Vitality, and just shows you how far ahead this mid lane Corki is. There is a huge minion wave in the bottom. Vitality are free to take this tower in the mid lane, and honestly, Vitality are playing so clean in this game.
Small mistakes are really all we can fault them for here. Origen have time and again tried to force plays, but it is just seldom working out for them now. 7 towers to 2. Vitality have more than doubled the total towers they've taken this entire split.
Yep. I mean, there were a lot of question marks around how this series would play out. Origen having so far the fairly consistent early game and having the more solid draft from what we've seen, but Vitality coming into today's games just seemed to be so much more clean. They had a very solid draft. They knew exactly how to execute on their composition. And this is the sort of Vitality where some of the hype was being generated around. This is why I myself thought that they could be that dark horse to come out from Group B and make their way up towards the top end of the group. The question mark is, why is it taking them so long to get here?
Well, either way, they've definitely arrived. And it has been on the backs of performances from Nukeduck, Djoko, Cabochard. I mean, the whole team's working well together overall, but like, Cabochard's been putting up some pretty big numbers just on the Shen. A lot of it was helped out by Djoko in the early game, but I mean, this is the kind of flashy plays that he was known for in previous splits.
And this is the coordination that, honestly, they were really lacking earlier on, as Satorius going on a very magical journey with Hachani. Hachani still gets caught out a little bit too much, even though it's only been once this game.
Well, he's 2-1-2. I mean, he can't really...
Still, I feel like he needs to be a little bit more aware, because there have been certain instances where I feel like that he shouldn't have been there. Nevertheless, we have to praise Vitality overall for what they've been able to do this game. They have the bottom inhibitor. Now, they really need to utilize this. Push up into the top side of Origen's jungle, gain control, start making plays around the Baron. And this is really where you can start to test the team, because we know how difficult Baron can be to play around for some teams.
Especially here in Europe. We have seen quite a few good old dances back in the day, but as we get closer and closer to that 30-minute mark and the late game approaching, Vitality looking to close this one out with the help of the big purple worm. Hachani throwing down some vision as Wisdom prowls around. Satorius does not have his teleport, but he's sitting on Fountain, getting that regen up, so he's going to have to walk it out. A lot of pings flying, and Vitality can get a catch before this Baron. They'll be happy.
See, this is what I don't like. The fact that Origen...
There we go. Oh, Tempered Fate. They open the curtains, and Djoko is bringing Cabochard. Instantly, Hiiva eats up NaeHyun, but he himself is going to give his life, and Nukeduck taking out Tabzz. The rest of Origen completely evaporating before our eyes as Djoko on a rampage. And now they don't even care about the Baron. They've got 3 down. They're heading for base.
I was going to criticize Vitality, but they shut me up and make it work. Getting themselves the 3 kills onto NaeHyun and Tabzz. There is now no damage on the side of Origen, and Vitality could look to close out the game.
They can cut through these turrets oh so easily. Origen can't offer much resistance, and they're only going to do a token of it right now. That's going to be it. The base is down, and Vitality pick up their first win to lead the series.
Vitality coming out the gate swinging. This is where the hype was being generated around. This is what we wanted to see from Vitality. Such good plays, such promising setup and communication and coordination. Really good game, really nice to see.
It's such a night and day performance from what we saw in their previous 2 series. I mean, coming into today, I would have said Origen were the favorites.
Yeah. I mean, based on what we've seen from past games, the fact that Vitality looked like a group of solo queue players, the fact that Vitality didn't understand how to draft properly.
The fact that they hadn't secured any dragons in 5 towers across 4 games, that was like, when I looked at that, I'm like, this is right, this is real, right?
Whereas against Origen, they just seem to have none of those issues.
They clicked.
They just worked incredibly well together. Djoko's early presence was on point. They utilized the Shen ultimate beautifully. And they just, honestly, they took advantage of their composition. They played the 1-3-1 very well. I was very impressed with what Vitality brought out.
Well, we'll have to see if they're able to do it again. So, fantastic. Right now, Vitality, they've got game 1 in the books. We'll see if they can do it again. But for now, we're going to send it over to the analyst desk to break down how it all happened.
Thank you very much, Pyra. Of course, an exciting game to see from Vitality. Such dominant control.
Beautiful game. Yeah, really liked it.
Yeah, overall.
I was a little bit surprised because we saw really clear ideas.
We just cut you off.
Yeah, it's fine. No, it's not about me. I want to hear what you have to say.
Here. Yeah, I think it was a really great game as well. Just sharing your sentiment. I didn't expect that. Both had like team comps that had specific ideas, and we actually see them displayed in this game. So that's really nice to see in Vitality in the end coming out ahead. But I really like that.
Yeah, but good things aside, we did see one major fumble from the top side of Origen as we look at this first replay here. Massive fumble when it comes to early lane control from the Maokai.
Yeah, what we can see here is that Vitality was leeching for bottom side the red buff, and same, the top laner was helping the red buff for Rek'Sai. So now what we will have happen is Kha'Zix will move towards top side here, and the Rek'Sai, you know, will be on the bottom side. So for Satorius right now, being pushed up like this, knowing that Kha'Zix can be around, and now he comes, they execute, he gets the taunt off, and this really starts to snowball here. And for Kha'Zix, getting early kills like this is just so important. And we see afterwards, they control the top side, he comes again, and they can start putting the pressure more towards bottom side.
It's actually a fairly unique jungle start with the bot lane leashing for you. Most teams around the world will always be like, no, I'm going to be in lane from the get-go with my 2v2 lane. Don't want to lose the first push. Don't want to risk falling behind at level 1. But them actually sitting at that red buff, giving Djoko a quick start so he can move top. It's something that should be communicated as well, through all of Origen, being okay, they clearly leashed for him, careful on top side. But as you highlighted, he traded early. Do you think he was forced into those trades by the Shen, or was it just his own fault?
I think it was his own fault. If we once again look at a little bit more over what was actually picked, and we just saw Origen, and I hope that they have a little bit more advanced draft for the next one, because they were missing engage and so on. They really wanted to make sure that this Maokai at least stays even and can push first. But pushing right from the start like this, you really need to make sure that you can bounce this back so that if the Kha'Zix is top lane level 3, that you are not risked to die.
So curious to see, do you think that if Kha'Zix had started top side and had moved down to the bottom side of the map, would it have been acceptable for Satorius to push so slowly into the tower, or is this pretty much never the right decision coming in?
It really depends. So what you want to do is really, if the level 3 ganks like a top side and your jungler starts red and goes down, and you know he will not be top side, you need to be on your own, you need to be self-sufficient, and you need to be able to manipulate the wave so that you are not losing CS, so best it's pushing towards you, or you just stay in experience range and just lose the CS.
Now, there is one adaptation, obviously, that could come from your own jungler. If you're the kind of top laner saying, I need you to just push this lane no matter what, like a Rek'Sai can do his 2 camps on top side, then secure the top side Rift Scuttler, and then later path down to the bottom side to give a little bit of vision, at least in the river. And you can try and ward behind you to see if the Kha'Zix is jumping over. But it is difficult because he can jump multiple walls, the Kha'Zix, to actually get in range to gank. So all in all, just not a smart move to push, and that set them behind.
Yeah, and Rek'Sai really wants to avoid the Kha'Zix and just farm.
You do not want to find a Kha'Zix.
Everybody wants to avoid the Kha'Zix. But the other thing that we saw is that not only did Vitality find this early advantage, they continued to grow this lead with some pretty smart, consistent plays. And as we take a look at this next replay, you can see the clever use of jungle clear and of Djoko specifically on this Kha'Zix.
There are 2 parts of this replay. First is a lot of praise to Djoko here, and they're calling between him and Nukeduck. So Djoko steals the blue buff. He then decides to hide in his little side bush here because he knows Orianna is going to move over to try and see what's happening near that blue. And that means him and Nukeduck together can actually force both Flash and Ghost from NaeHyun. And this changes now the game plan, because Sheepy was sitting here with us and we were all talking and we were being like, yeah, dive bot lane seems to be the obvious. But now without any summoners in mid from Orianna, instant change in plan. Hachani roams in, Shen ulti comes down, and Vitality can now take a fight that Origen technically just wants to get away from as quickly as possible, but they react too late and end up getting a 1-member court here. NaeHyun playing very greedy. We have to point that out now. No Flash, no Ghost. Gets caught as well. And that one, that's the annoying one.
Yes.
And as this replay closes out, while Vitality mostly looked like a super clean snowball from them, there was sort of some small moments where we saw OG executing their comp in the way that we wanted to see it happen, I think specifically in this mid-game team fight as we look at our third and I think final replay.
Yeah, I was really excited that we actually get to see this one time, because they have triple tank and they really want to put the tanks on top of the mobile carry from Vitality and just kill them. So perfect execution here with the Maokai Tahm Kench ultimate behind, forcing the team fight where they are stronger, and now they can actually isolate this Jhin, so he's not together anymore with the tanks, has no peel, has no flash, no QSS, and he just dies.
It is just cool to see 2 comps in a way, if we want to simplify how they can both play out the game. We saw this one with the Tahm Kench ulti into the backline. Vitality obviously had this very aggressive 1-3-1 where you have a Shen ulti on either a Kha'Zix who's shattering the lane where Corki's sitting, or just a Shen ulti straight onto the Corki. And it's more like defensive 1-3-1 from Origen, because they can use Tahm Kench ulti to move from mid to the side lane to protect an Orianna, but it is a little bit slower. It's harder to set up as well if you don't have push in mid. So when they fell this far behind, Nukeduck was just doing whatever he wanted to do in the side lane because he knew he had backup every time, and Vitality actually executed this composition extremely well.
Yeah, and just to summarize what happened in this game. Topside snowball, Vitality instantly capitalized on this, bot lane snowball, then getting afterwards the advantage on all 3 lanes, setting up the 1-3-1.
Yep.
OG has one good team fight, but then afterwards just keep on 1-3-1 and Vitality wins out the game by their composition.
Sheepy, I wish you were always here to summarize the games so eloquently. But we're going to make like Ivern, throw Daisy at you, run away, never die. But when our cooldowns reset, we'll be back for game 2 between Vitality and Origen.
try and zone away Nukeduck. He was too scared to get close, and now NaeHyun is being
Speaking of getting close, they found NaeHyun even through the heel of Tabzz.
Good job, guys. Play it slow, okay? Play it slow.
Djoko, he's going to be bringing Cabochard. NaeHyun does get an ultimate off, but is not even needing Cabochard. They're going to be able to take this tower, and no response from Origen.
Maybe fight, maybe not fight, I don't know.
He stays alive, Wisdom following, he just needs a shot. Steelback's dancing and dodging from everything, and Origen just can't get him. Now Wisdom finally picks him up off screen. Hiiva eats up NaeHyun, but he himself is gonna give his life, and Nukeduck taking out Tabzz. The rest of Origen completely evaporating before our eyes as Djoko on a rampage